ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Today, Namaskar Mहोदय. Today we will have a revision session of the 4 Vedangas. Actually, Vyakaranam Rama Bhagini wanted to do, but she is not prepared, it seems. And Shibani is also stuck in the office. So they too will be taking up in the next class. The remaining people can do whatever you people have understood and you can present. So first topic is Shiksha. Sundaresh Mahodaya was supposed to do. I don't know where he has gone. Just now I saw him. Don't know where he is. Okay, then Vyakaranam is not there. Chaitra Mahodaya. Can you start with Chandah?
Astu Mahoday. Yeah. Namaste. So, yeah, Chandas, that is the Sanskritam prosody or the poetical meters, as we have seen. So it's one of the 6 Vedangas, that we have discussed in our classes. And it's also known as the feet of the Vedas, because it helps us in, understanding the Vedas. And hence it's been given that particular name, the feet. And so basically this Chandas or the prosody, it is like Padya Rachanayaha Shastram, study of various poetic meters, verses in Sanskritam. And so according to Niruktam, this term Chandas is derived from the Chat, that Padam. So it literally means to cover in the sense, like the sense of the mantras, like ensuring that the mantras are properly read or recited. Yeah. And so Chandas is basically, Sakaranta, Napumsakalinga, that's the Pratipadikam. And then Chandaha is in Pratama Vibhakti and Ekvachanam. And it means, it could be like pleasing, charming, delightful. That's something which we discussed in our class. And following that, we also looked at the few technical terms. That's the Paribhashika Padani, like Padaha, that is 1/4 of a verse. Then Matra, that is the Guru and Laghu. Then Prastaraha, that is the arrangement, the pattern of, of these Guru and Laghu. Then Gana Vibhagaha, the various Ganas. So basically here, Chandas, it includes both like fixed number of syllables per verse and the number of matra, like matra Chandas and akshara Chandas. Yeah, so and we also discussed the its significance in Vedic literature. So basically in Rig Vedas, Purusha Suktam, it says that, this is born from the Yajna. And Panini Maharshi, he also uses Chandas as a synonym for Vedaha. And in our Bhagavad Gita, the leaves of, the eternal Ashwatha tree, so that is compared to Chandas. Then of course Pujya Swami Dayanandji also says that, when one studies Vedas through, of course, the help of Chandas, so one actually is able to, grasp the knowledge, and the person, he really becomes happy in a true sense. And then Natya Shastra also says, that the word cannot exist without Chandas. I've just given few examples. I have not taken the entire thing. I have just quoted a few things. And so now the author of Chandas Shastra, we have seen that it is Pingala Maharshi. is the brother of Panini Maharshi, who gave us the Ashtadhyayi. And so this Chanda Shastra is also called the Pingala Sutrani and the Sutras. And probably it's the oldest Sanskritam prosody text. It also contains, just like Ashtadhyayi, it contains 8 chapters. And and all these 8 chapters, they talk about various aspects of Chandas. And yes, it's something what we have discussed earlier is that there are many types of chandas, and each chandaha, it has its own rhythm, its the movement and its aesthetics. So that makes actually even a piece of literature or a poetic work easier to grasp, memorize, recite, and one really enjoys the entire process. So next, I would like to speak, very briefly about like how do we identify Chandaha. So basically here there are certain rules, and so every aksharam is identified to be either Laghu or Guru as per the rules of the Chanda Shastra, which Pingala Maharshi has elaborated. That is the Laghu vowels, is the Risva Swaraha. It could be the Guru vowels, that is the Dirgha Swaraha. And here basically the Laghu and Guru main difference is like the time period required to pronounce a particular syllable. Like Guru may take like 2 beats, Laghu 1 beat, it's like that. Like A is Laghu, then A is Guru. And then relate to that, even the aksharam, basically which contain that, the Laghu or Guru Swaraha. So depending on that also, we kind of, we need to see whether it's Laghu or Guru. And also aksharam that contains an anuswara or visarga, that is also always marked as Guru. And aksharam that is followed by a conjunct letter or a samyut aksharam, that is also marked as Guru. And one more point is aksharam that appears at the end of a pada or a line, in a shloka, that's always marked as Guru. Thus every line or every pada, basically it can be transformed into a sequence, a binary sequence, rather as Laghu and Guru, when we mark it. And I'll just show a couple of examples little later. And so specific patterns of such sequence, so these are identified as various chandas. And so in this context, I would also like to talk about the ganas. So here in the case of akshara gana vritti, what we have seen is the aksharas are divided into groups of 3. And so such to the power of 3 of Laghu and Guru markers are possible, and each of these have been given a name as gana. Like it could be ya gana, bha gana, ja gana, ma gana, then sa gana, ra gana, which will come to, I'll show you the examples. And then we also discussed we had a discussion about chandas and Samskrita bhasha. Again, here I'm maybe only some points I'll mention. So there in that context we discussed shloka and 2 kinds of like the Vritta shloka and Jati shloka. So where Vritta shloka, it has like precise number of syllables, and under Vritta shloka we studied like something called Samavrittam, where there are 4 padas and they have same number of syllables. And then we learned Ardha Samavrittam, where the alternate padas, they may have the same number of syllables, and Vishamavrittam, where all the padas are like 1/4 of a verse, they have different these patterns. And the hymns of Rigveda, they also include the names of meters. We have seen that. And most of the ancient Sanskritam literature, they adhere to Chanda Shastra, by all these rules, which have been given to us by Pingala Maharshi. And we also looked at 7 major Vedic chandas. Chandaha. Basically, that is Gayatri, then Ushnik, Anushtup, then Vrishati, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Haripriya Mohan.
Brihati.
Oh, Brihati. Okay, okay. Then Pankti, then Vrishtup and Jagati. And and we also looked at this Pancha Maha Kavyani of classical Sanskritam, and the dominant chandas in each one of them. Example where Raghuvamsham, which is written by Kalidasa, it is in, Anushtup, that's the dominant chandas. We looked at a number of chandas, sutrani, and the examples in our classes. Then following that, we also looked at the relationship between chandas and the mathematical theory. Many concepts, So, according to the studies and research, this Chanda Shastra, it is, it was utilized while developing the binary numbers. And origin of zero is also said to be associated with Chanda Shastra. And even Pascal's triangle, of those binomial coefficients, it has its root in this Meru Prastara of Pingala Maharshi's Chandas Shastra. So I think this is my presentation, but I would like to discuss a couple of examples. May I, Haripriya Mahoday?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Mahoday, actually, I would like to display that because I had some doubts also, and I would like some clarification.
I can share now.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mahoday, here I have taken up this particular shloka, that is Nasti Vidya Samam Chakshu, Nasti Satya Samam Tapaha, Nasti Raga Samam Dukkham, and Nasti Tyaga Samam Sukham. So I have marked the Lagu and Guru accordingly. So here I'm getting in every pada, I'm getting 8 syllables. And these ganas also, like Bha Gana, then Ra Gana. And of course, here you have this, it's Guru and Guru. Oh, I think Cha has to be Laghu. I'm sorry, it has to be Laghu, yeah. So, no, it has to be Guru because Kshu is there, right? Which is so yeah, that's the reason I have taken Guru. So I just would like to ask whether it is correct or, and here also whether Satya Samam could we combine like this? Is it correct?
I didn't understand your question.
No, here this Satya Samam, like Nasti Satya Samam Tapaha. So here I have combined Satya Samam. So is
it is okay. Yeah, it's okay. That's not.
Yeah. So is this 8 syllables here correct, Mahoday, the way I have?
Correct. There is no, I don't find any mistakes in this.
Okay. So here, when I look at, you have these, there are 32 syllables. So could you say that this particular shloka is in Anushtup Chandas?
Yes. 32 syllables is Anushtup Chandas, but Anushtup Chandas has different vrittas. So, Vasanta Tilaka, so many vrittas. So it belongs to Sama. One of
Samavrittam, right, Mahoday, this one? Because the same number of syllables are present in every part.
Yes.
And there's just one more shloka. This is Anayasena Maranam, Vinadainyena Jivanam, Dehante Tava Sanidhyam, Dehi Me Parameshwaraha. So I have taken up this entire as the, together like 16 syllables and 16 syllables. Or should I have, broken it like Anayasena Maranam as the first pada?
Yes. You have to break it. You had to
Oh,
make it
okay.
4 padas you had to mark actually. There is no
Okay.
need to write in a separate line.
Okay.
But you have to make it is like a comma.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm?
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Mahoday. Then yeah, I'll change this. Then I'll change
Hmm.
this and I'll.
But it is better to write in 4 lines so that there is no confusion.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Hmm?
Yeah. 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 I think less
Since
chance of making mistakes also, right?
yes, since
So.
we are at the beginning level, it is
Mm,
better we take up in 4 lines. Hmm?
yeah. Yeah,
Samyak
I have
Mahoday.
not discussed everything, Mahoday, because I felt that to take up a lot of time. So I have
It's okay.
just given a brief, thing of what I have understood and what I've really picked up and, could manage. So
Mhm.
just done that. So
Yes,
yeah,
very good. You have done a very good job.
धन्यवाद.
Next, next who is going to talk? Shiksha. Sundaresh Mahodaya, are you there? He's not there. I think there is some
Yeah.
problem, huh?
Yeah, I had a network problem. Now I'm back.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I will present. Actually, I had sent my PDF. Let me see if I can share it. Just a second.
You can share, Mahodaya. I have
Yes, I will.
made it multiple.
Okay, I will do that. Just a second. Can everybody see it now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Just a second. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Everybody can see it. Namaste, everybody. Sarvebhya namaskaraha. I will. Can you all hear me?
Mahodaya. Sure.
Okay. So I will go through the Vedanga Siksha. Actually, Siksha. Sometimes in my speed, I say it as a Siksha. Actually, it's Siksha, Vedanga Siksha Shastra. And I think in one of our earlier presentations, we had briefly touched upon this topic, and now I have updated it with more information that we have discussed in the last few weeks. So the first question is, what is Siksha? Siksha is one of the main 6 Vedangas that we have. And the other Vedangas are, the 6 Vedangas are Siksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nirukta, Kalpa, and Jyotisha. Those are the 6 Vedangas, and we have gone through all of them now. So I'll just briefly mention about the Siksha Shastra. And there is a Sanskrit sloka that actually gives the importance of all these Vedangas. Siksha Vyakaranam Chando Niruktam Jyotisham Tata Kalpascheti Shadangani Vedasyahur Manishinaha. Basically, what it says is that these are the 6 important Vedangas that are essential for us to take a deep dive and understand the vast ocean of the Vedic literature. And that's what that means. And so that this is one of the basic slokas that are always that's actually always referred or quoted in almost all the texts when it comes to the discussion on these Vedangas. As we have discussed earlier, Siksha is one of the 6 documents or 6 granthas that Panini has written, and all the 6 are important, no doubt. The other one is being the Ashtadhyayi and the Linganushasanam and Ganapata, Dhatupata, and Siksha is one of them. And another, so he has written 6 granthas, and Siksha happens to be one of the very important document, as important as all the other documents. And of course, Ashtadhyayi everybody knows. So we can say Shiksha is also like as important as Ashtadhyayi. This Shiksha is actually a small treatise. It has got 60 slokas, and at the end, when Bhagini Haripriya Bhagini discussed the Siksha Shastra, she actually has included the Siksha at the end of her presentation. So I did not include all of them, just mentioning the fact that Siksha has got 60 slokas in it. And basically, it's the Siksha Shastra is a phonetic science. And one of the ways of understanding Vedas or the Upanishads is how to really chant or recite the Vedas. So this Siksha Shastra actually explains the exact methodology of how to chant the Upanishads. It goes through, as we go further, we will just go through quickly what it really means and things like that. So Siksha is a treatise by Panini, written by Panini Maharishi, and it has got 60 slokas. Now, another important aspect is, this also gives the importance of the Siksha. Panini Maharishi compares these 6 Vedangas to 6 limbs of the Veda Purusha. Veda Purusha here is basically the Supreme Lord. And actually, he does this in a beautiful sloka that is outlined here. Chandaha padau tu vedasya hastau kalpotta patyate jyotisha mayanam chakshuhu niruktam shrotramuchyate. Siksha granam tu vedasya mukam vyakaranam smritam tasmat sangamaditye va brahmaloke mahiyate. The summary of this is Chandaha padau tu vedasya hastau kalpotta patyate. He compares the chandas to the feet of the Veda Purusha. Jyotisha mayanam, Jyotisham ayanam, that is the eyes compared to the Jyotisha. Chakshuhu niruktam, ayanam, and Chakshu niruktam, and Shrotra muchyate, and Chakshu niruktam Shrotra muchyate, the hearing aid, that is a ears. Shiksha granam tu vedasya. Siksha is actually compared to Granam. Granam means the smell part of it. Nose, Nasika. Mukam Vyakaranam Smritam. Mukam is the mouth, basically. The Vyakaranam Smritam. Tasmat Sangam Adiyate va Brahmaloke Mahiyate. Tasmat Sangam Aditye. That means if we study all these things properly, then we are sure to attain the Brahmaloka. And this particular last statement comes in a different way at the end of this presentation. Tasmat Sangam Adite. Aditya. Aditya means studying. Sangam Aditya means studying it in a very satisfactory manner where we understand things. Va Brahmaloke Mahiyate. That means we definitely will attain the Brahmaloka. Before Panini wrote this treatise, of course, there were many treatises like Siksha. Before Panini was in the 3rd or 4th century, but the Siksha and all were in the 6th century BC. A lot of other treatises, and each Veda had its own Siksha type treatise, and it was called the Pratishakya. Yajurveda had one, it was called the Yajurveda Pratishakya. Rigveda had one, it's called Rigveda Pratishakya, and so on and so forth. But after the advent of Panini's Siksha, the Grantha, it was so comprehensive, and it included, and of course, one important point is the Pratishakyas that were there before Panini's Siksha Grantha. They were, for the most part, very deeply referring to the Vedic aspect of it, the Vedic Sanskrit aspect of it, the Pratishakyas. Okay. Now, when Panini wrote the Siksha Grantha, he wrote it in such a way that most of the Siksha could be actually applied for both the classical Sanskrit and the Vedic Sanskrit. When I say classical, it is the Vyavaharika, the transactional Sanskrit that we use in our day-to-day life. So the Siksha actually had the attributes and the descriptions where we could apply the science of phonetics both for the classical Sanskrit as well as the Vedic Sanskrit. So then what happened was, since it was such a nice document which actually had these two aspects, then it came to be accepted as somewhat of a standard both for the classical Sanskrit and as well as the Vedic Sanskrit. That's another important aspect of the Siksha. So in spite of many hundreds of Pratishakyas that were there before Panini's time, after Panini wrote Siksha Grantha, it came to be accepted as something that can be generally used because it had the attributes of both the classical as well as the Vedic Sanskrit. And this actually is another very important aspect that many of the foreign authors do refer in their explanation about Panini and the description of Panini and his expertise and things like that. Siksha document, actually, there is a book called Panini or something, an introduction to Panini. I think that is the title written by a author called Goldstucker. And in that document, in that book, he does refer to Siksha to a small extent, but there he actually mentions this aspect also, where Siksha is such an important document because it has got the ingredients for both the classical as well as the Vedic Sanskrit. Now, coming to the next point, I think I mentioned the standard across both classical and Vedic Sanskrit. Now, Siksha, being a classical explanation of how the words have to be pronounced, how the letters have to be pronounced, and things like that, it's nothing but a phonetic science. I'm sorry, there is a typo phonetic. It should be a PHO. There is an E extra. So it's Siksha is also known as the phonetic or phonetic science. It actually includes all the linguistic aspects of the sound formation and the pronunciation and the origin of these sounds. One of the main aspects of this phonetic science in the Siksha is really an excruciatingly detailed description of where these sounds originate, which part of our body, and mostly it's in our mouth part, in our facial and mouth part. So it is called as the mouth, throat, and vocal cord complex, MTC. It's called the MTC complex. That's where the sound originates at different parts of that. We have the palate and the gutturals and all that stuff. So Siksha actually very excruciatingly describes the origin of these sound units in this mouth, throat, vocal cord complex, MTV complex. The precision is so good. That's why each letter that is pronounced is just perfect. There is nothing, we cannot say it is close to perfect or great or anything. It is just perfect. There's nothing other than that. So that is why the Siksha is so important in terms of how to learn Sanskrit itself, in the way we pronounce the visargas, the way we pronounce the aspirates, the way we pronounce the unaspirates, the alpa pranas and the mahapranas and the ayogavahos and all that stuff. So one of the salient features of this grantha is, as far as I'm concerned, I always keep saying this as MTV complex. This is something that my Veda Guru taught me a long time ago, the mouth, throat, and the vocal cord complex. And of course, there is a lot of details. And then even in our Sanskrit grammar books, you see the description of where which part of our mouth, which varnas originate and things like that. And also the effort, it's called the prayatna. There are different types of prayatnas that are used for pronouncing these letters and the words. Bahya prayatna and the antar prayatna, that is inside and the outside. So there is a very nice description of that. And the Siksha actually mentions which is a internal prayatna and which is an external prayatna and things like that. So the next part is the Siksha Shastra, the details. I have included some 12 aspects here. I'll quickly go through that. We did touch upon these things in our previous presentation. When we actually recite the Upanishads, the Vedas, there are 4 aspects of it. When we recite the Vedas, the words and the varnas, the letters, Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, and Pluta. Udatta means a letter that is pronounced at a slightly higher pitch. And the way it is designated in our scriptures, in the Vedic scriptures, is that there is a horizontal line above the letter that is called Udatta. That means it's pronounced, it's called Mahaprana. That means you give a little bit of emphasis on that varna. Likewise, there is also another thing called Anudatta. Anudatta means how the letter is pronounced with a little less emphasis, Alpa Prana, and it is designated by a horizontal stroke below the letter. The Udatta is a vertical stroke above the letter, and the Anudatta is a horizontal stroke below the letter. I think I mentioned horizontal for Udatta, that's a mistake. Udatta is a vertical stroke above the letter, and Anudatta is a horizontal stroke below the letter. And Swarita is a flat. That means it has to be pronounced without any emphasis whatsoever. That is called Swarita. And the fourth one is Pluta. Pluta is a protracted variable. That means we elongate, we say it, we actually elaborate the pronunciation of that particular varna. It's called Pluta. It's also called protracted varna. And actually, one of the very famous exponents of yoga and Vedas, Mahodaya D. Krishnamacharya. Krishnamacharya was the guru, was a yoga guru. He actually calls this as a runaway variable in one of his books. Runaway variable. This Pluta, he calls it as a runaway variable because it has got a dirgha pronunciation. Ha. That means you are going to take it for 3 matras. That as Chaitra indicated in her Chandas presentation, there are matras that are used to measure the pronunciation of each of these varnas. One matra, swara is one matra, it's one, and dirgha swara is 2 matras, and Pluta is 3 matras. So that is what these 4 methods, the 4 aspects are used for pronouncing the letters as well as the words. So these things have to be pronounced correctly. So there are so many words in our Upanishads that if they are not pronounced in the way as explained in the Siksha Shastra, then we may not get the correct meaning. We may get different meanings. So it is extremely important to make sure that we learn through a guru the pronunciation of these kinds of these Vedic mantras and Upanishads. In addition to this, in addition to the methodology of pronouncing the letters and the words, the Siksha Shastra also contains a number of other things. It says the number of letters and the classification which we just mentioned, and how and where these letters originate. That is the origin of these letters within our MTV complex, pronunciation, and then qualities of correct, incorrect Vedic chanting, number 5 in this document. I have actually touched upon it in my next section. I'll go through it in a little bit more detail. Then the different types of swara chanting for different yagnas. Here, when I say swara chanting for different yagnas, I think Haripriya Bhagini touched upon it in her presentation. There are different ways. Different. The Samhita is Samhita, then Ghana, Jata, and there are so many different. There are 12 different types of pronouncing the Vedic mantras. So Siksha actually includes the details on that also. And 9 different types of word formations. 7 and 8 in my presentation say 6 different types of swara chanting for different yagnas, and 9 different types of word formations. And this is what I meant, basically the Gana, Jata, and Samhide, and there are 7 or 8, totally 12 of them are there. And the other thing is the hand gestures. When in the olden days, actually, they used to teach how to perfectly pronounce the swaras and the dirgha swaras and things like that. And the hand gestures were used. Like, you keep your palm open and then go up and down and things like that. And that was one of the very important aspects of Vedic chanting. Nowadays, a lot of Gurukulas and Gurus don't teach it, but there are few Veda Pathshalas where the Gurus teach them, because it was a very integral part of our Vedic chanting. So hand gestures, what constitutes a Udatta, what constitutes an Anudatta, and the hand gestures were used for chanting the Vedas. Now, of course, rarely you see that. But even though there are some Pathshalas I know I've seen where they teach this hand gestures. And that's also part of this Siksha document, Siksha Grantha. And we talked a little bit about the time it takes to measure the 1 matra, 2 matras, 3 matras, and things like that. And then there is another aspect of the Siksha Grantha is that who has the adhikara for Vedic chanting. It has got very clear explanation of who can chant the Vedas and who are not, not given the permission to chant Vedas and things like that. In our Hindu scripture, in Hindu culture, as most of us know, from a Brahminical standpoint, at the age of 7, the boy will be, they will perform a samskara called Upanayana, where we have the sacred thread. And it is at that point, that boy becomes an adhikari for Vedic chanting, and then that boy will be admitted to the Gurukula and things like that in the olden days. But so they talk about these details of who really has got the adhikara or the permission to pronounce to chant the Vedas and the Upanishads. 11 and 12 is, once again, I'll go in the next section, the effects of mispronunciation, the benefits of correct pronunciation, and the 11 and 12, they talk about the same thing. So now we will go to the last section, section 3, how should the Vedic hymns be chanted? This is one of the very important aspect of the Siksha document also. According to the Siksha treatise, the qualities or the attributes to be developed to recite or chant the Vedic hymns are given in the following 2 slokas. Basically, when a boy is ready to chant, when he gets the adhikara to chant the Vedic mantras, he joins the Gurukula and the Guru teaches him and things like that. But what are the qualities? How do you judge whether a person is chanting the Vedas correctly or not? Is given by this sloka. Giti Shigri Shirah Kampi Tata Likita Patakaha Anartagnya Alpakantascha Shadete Patakadamaha. Giti Shigri Shirah Kampi Tata Likita Patakaha Anartagnya Alpakantascha Shadete Patakadamaha. What does it mean? Giti, when we chant the Vedas, when we chant the Upanishads, the Upanishad Veda should never be chanted like a song. That is what Giti means. Shigri, it should never be chanted very fast. It should be chanted in a way that everybody can enjoy, then they can feel the auspiciousness, the spirituality of these Vedas. You should become flabbergasted with the way. Of course, we all feel now, if you hear the Vedic chanting that is done by the stalwarts, the Panditas, you feel so good about it, right? So it should be pronounced, chanted in such a way. Now, fast, a lot of people now tend to recite it very fast. Actually, then at that time, you don't understand it. It happens even nowadays. And my guru who taught me, he actually mentioned one thing. He said the exact interpretation of saying that the Veda should never be chanted fast is that what it means is that when somebody chants the Vedas or the Upanishads, the people who are listening, of course, it is assumed that the people who are listening are familiar with Sanskrit. People who are very familiar with Sanskrit should be able to write it exactly with the correct intonations of Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, and whatnot. Then you are chanting the Vedas in the correct speed. That is the exact, that's what my guru told me, that's what this fast speed means. That means when one recites the Vedas or the Upanishads in a way where the people who are listening should be able to write it as exactly what the mantra is, with the correct Udattas, Anudattas, and the Swarita. And I have actually shared this with many of my friends and colleagues, and everybody, I said, I mean, it's a fantastic thing and thing. I mean, if you think about it, that's what it means. That when the Upanishads are recited, the people who hear it should be able to write it down. That means it tells what an expert you are and how nicely you have learned. Okay, so Shigri means fast. Shirah Kampi. Shirah means head. Kampi means actually oscillation. We should never chant the Upanishads by shaking the head and things like that. In Carnatic music and Hindustani music, it comes naturally. You can see actually the singers shake their head when they do the swara alapana and things like that. That is part of the music. But when it comes to Vedic chanting, we should never chant the Vedas by shaking our heads. Okay, Tata Likita Patakaha. See, this is also, but means what Likita Patakaha means, you are not supposed to read it from a script. That's what it means. Likita Patakaha, you're not supposed to read it from the script. But there has been a lot of debate on this particular aspect, and there's a lot of this. See, actually, some of the latest accepted interpretation is because, see, not everybody can remember everything from a Vedic standpoint. There are Rigveda, Yajurveda. Rigveda has got 10 mandalas and so many mantras and things like that. It's very difficult to remember. You can refer to it, but the purport here is that you can look at the script and chant, but you should not indulge in any other activity of writing or something like that when you're chanting. That is what I think the purport is, from what I have interpreted and understood by discussing with a lot of Vidvamsas is, because see, nobody knows all the way. Even though in the olden days there were people who used to chant because that's what full time they were doing, but these days there are many Vidvamsas who know a lot of it, but they will not know all of it. But whatever they have studied for many years. But amateurs like all of us, when we learn, it's not that we can chant all this without looking at the script. We can look at the script, but the point here is we have to chant it correctly, and to chant that correctly we have to learn this through a guru. Anarthagnaha means without knowing the meaning, we should not chant. That's what we have to know the meaning of the Vedas. But actually, there has been a lot of debates also. I think Haripriya Bagiri mentioned in one of her lectures that there are a lot of Vidwams who actually recite the Vedas. They may not know all the meaning of all the mantras that they recite, but it's accepted now. I mean, it's accepted that you're not expected to know the meaning of just about every mantra that is there. You can learn chanting, but you have to, generally we have to learn the meaning of it. But if there are instances where you can chant properly, but you don't know the meaning of it, I think it's acceptable from what I can say. Alpakantascha. Alpakantascha means the Vedas should never be recited in a low tone. It has to be recited exactly according to the Udattas, Anudattas, and Swaritas, clearly and very nicely, so that clearly and confidently, so that people who listen to it actually know it's being recited exactly the way that's been recommended in the Siksha Shastra. So it should not be recited in a low tone. So Shadete Pataka Dhammaha, these are the 6 qualities that people should not have who learn Vedic chanting. Pataka Adamaha, that means these are the bad aspects of Vedic chanting. What is those 6? It should never be sung like a song. It should never be recited. It should never be recited like a song. It should never be recited very fast. It should never be recited by shaking the head, and it should never be recited by looking at the script. It should never be recited without understanding the mantras. And lastly, it should never be recited in a low tone. So these are the 6 qualities that should never be there for Vedic chanting. Now the next paragraph gives the qualities of correct Vedic chanting. Madhuryam akshara vyakti padachedastu suswaraha dhairyancha laya samartyancha shadete pataka gunaha. Gunaha means quality. It's good quality, good attributes. Madhuryam akshara vyakti. These are the qualities that a person who chants Vedic hymns must have. It should be melodious. Okay, Madhuryam akshara vyakti. Melodic, clear pronunciation. Akshara vyakti means, like I said, the varnas and the words have to be very clearly pronounced. And then the split, and then akshara vyakti padachedastu suswaraha padachedaha. That means the words have to be broken at the appropriate places. And some of them we have a lot of compound words also. That means there are many words that actually form one word, and those words should be broken down as part of the chanting at the appropriate places, not at all places. That's why it says padachedastu means not everything should be broken, but wherever appropriate, then the padacheda will happen, and then should happen, and split of the correct at the appropriate places, and the use of correct intonations. And the other thing is mentioned here was suswaraha. Suswaraha means reciting the swaras correctly. Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita should be, these are called the swaras, they should be pronounced correctly. Okay, that's what it means. Intonations. The intonations of Udatta, Anudatta, and Swarita. And the other aspect is Dhairyancha, like I mentioned before. The person who chants the Vedas should be chanting with confidence. And the confidence comes when you learn it through a guru, when you know exactly how to pronounce it with all the Sudatas, Anudatas, and Swaritas correctly, and with the Padachedas at the appropriate places. And finally, a good working knowledge of prosody, the Chandas. Chaitra Bhagini actually talked about Chandas. So that Chandas, good working knowledge should be there when we recite. Laya Samarthyancha. Laya here, Laya is part of the Chandas. So that aspect we should know. That gives the melodious and the spiritual aspect of it. So these are the 6 qualities, good qualities of Vedic chanting. That's why, and the last, I will end my presentation with this last one. That's why it is important and essential to learn. The key operative word here is essential. That's why it is important and essential to learn the Siksha phonetic signs, to know the difference between the pronunciation and the meaning of the Vedic words. That is extremely important. Samyak Varna Prayogena Brahmaloke Mahiyate. I think we touched upon it at the beginning of this. When the Vedas, the Upanishads, are pronounced exactly as per our Siksha Shastra, which is learned through a very competent guru, then we will become one with the Lord, and we will attain the paradise. Itisham, this is my presentation. Thank you all very much.
Excellent, excellent, Mahodaya. Actually, here this Geeti Shikri Shirah Kampi. You said musicians are allowed to do it. Actually, if you go to Natya Shastra and read, there Bharata Muni has mentioned that how a person should behave on stage. Like even for a musician, it is not allowed. He cannot keep on shaking his head and making all sorts of funny faces while. See, that shows he is straining himself. A musician also needs to enjoy his music. If he is making all the distorted expressions, that means he is struggling to bring out that beauty. So it is very clear in Natya Shastra, and regarding the actors also, he talks about how they should behave on stage. So it applies to all the whatever activity we do. That should all these rules in general apply to everything.
Actually, one clarification I wanted. See, in this Likita Patakaha, it says that means actually the interpretation of this is we should not recite Vedas by looking at the script. But whatever I mentioned was that a correct understanding on my part, or
yes, definitely. Likita Patakaha is the one who reads from the text. So nowadays, what happens? We learn quite late in our life. So we tend to look at the book and do the activity. But if somebody learns since their childhood, then they will be not in need of any text. It stays in their memory. It is correct only. There is no problem. अस्तु बहु सम्यक् आसीत् अग्रे निरुक्तं वा
धन्यवादः भगिनी
स्वागतं जयिता महोदय
yes Bhagini. So this is the Vedanga that is known as the year of the Vedas. So I'll start with what was the need for Nirukta. So Haripriya Bhagini had described how after the Mahabharata war, there was quite a lot of degradation in Sanskritam as such, and also the societal attitudes towards Sanskritam and the Vedas. So there was partially other philosophies spreading like Buddhism, Charvakas, who started criticizing the Vedas as just rituals and basically showing preaching quite a lot of disregard and disrespect towards the Veda, saying that this was propagated from a feeling of selfishness or people who were not concerned about doing good for society. So there were various philosophers who spoke about this. So there was a controversy about a person called Kauta, who preached that there was no need to understand the meaning of mantras in the Vedas, And any results that were associated with this was just from the recitation and not with any understanding of the meaning. So basically, it was a period of where the sort of glory of Vedas was being eclipsed by various changes that were happening in society. So a person who stood up and again to explain and to counter these people who were against Vedas or were propagating disrespect was Yaska Maharishi, who pointed out that the difference between the mantras of the Vedas, the Vedic Sanskrit, also called as chandas, and the language of the ordinary people or the bhasha that was there. So he says that the rishis, who were the mantra drashtas, they had a direct perception of what the meaning of the mantras were. But the later generations, because of lack of tapas and that persistence that was there earlier, they lost that power of the direct perception of the mantra meanings. So this is why the degeneration has happened. So to help people to understand the meaning of these Vedic texts, specifically in the context that certain words were mentioned in the Vedas, so texts like Nirukta and Nirghantu were written. Nirghantava were written. So Yaska Rishi said there were three things which were important to understand from the point of view of understanding Vedic mantras. So first one was, who is the mantra dashta, or who is the rishi who has written the mantra. So because understanding this is going to help us understand, or learners understand, the nigudha artha of the mantra and to learn and understand better. Second thing is, he also said was important for understanding the Vedic mantras was, who was the devata for whom the Vedic mantra was dedicated. And then thirdly, the chandas, which is the meter on which the mantra was composed. So how was it going to be recited? I think lots of discussions have happened already about that. How is the mantra to be said? So these were the specific three things that Yaska Maharishi said a learner needed to know about a Vedic mantra. So Nirghantu, I'm going to talk about it in different, but the first, one of the ways to look at it are, these are dictionaries of the Vedas. So they are lists of words. So Yaska Maharishi said that every Vedic mantra has it's got an expressive power. It has a definitive meaning associated with it. So knowing the meanings of Vedic words is important, because without knowing this, I think Haripriya Mahoday quite expressively described it as becoming a sthanu. So if you are reciting a mantra without understanding the meaning of this, specifically in the context in which it is mentioned, then it's like you're a pillar to which, like a cow or a buffalo or a goat is tied. But so this is, you are not able to get any benefit from that action. So the whole benefit is only realized when it is chanted, when the mantra is chanted with understanding of the meaning in the context in which it has been given. So that will help realize all the benefits associated with the mantra. So Sakalam Bhadram Ashnute. Then another thing which Yaska Maharishi also talked about was learning from teachers directly. So merely repeating without understanding meaning will not bring benefit. And there was that example of firewood being thrown on a dead fire, so it will not ignite. So without that experiential learning being transferred from a guru. So now Nirghantu, that is a dictionary, it's a glossary of Vedic words. And it's divided into specific, these words are divided into different categories. So nouns, verbs, prepositions, and particles. So the Nirghantu has 5 chapters, Panchadhyayi. First section is lists of synonyms of Vedic words. Then second section is where the same word has many different meanings. So those are the first one is synonyms, and the second one is called homonyms in English language. Then the third section is where different deities are described in the Vedas, how they appear in the Vedas, their descriptions, the lists of those words. So the synonyms or ekartha or samanartha, these are the two words which are used for synonyms. So there were some examples given like dhir dharanavati medha. So all of these words are synonyms, they mean the same thing, but these specific things, these specific different words have refined kind of associated meanings, which especially when it comes to literature or creative kind of writing, that's where these synonyms are extremely useful to explain or to kind of describe the poet's or the author's specific point of view in a way which is very, which is individual to them. So so use of synonyms, the ekartha and samanartha, are important from the point of view of literature. And then the homonyms, where the same word is having different meanings. So anekartha or nanartha. So these exist too. So Bhagini had described how Alankar Shastra, here again, these sorts of words have specific usage there. And she had given some examples as well of specific words, like payas can mean water, it can mean milk as well. Then amta can mean nectar, it can also mean water. And bhuvana can mean universe, and it can also mean water. So these the different chapters would have these specific lists of words. So then we came across another word, which was nirvachanam. So it is the study which helps us to analyze a word from the point of view of different uses and meanings, and in accordance with how it was derived. So this is especially important if you want to understand how the specific significant usage of a word. Then Nirukta. So Nirukta gives clarity or the understanding of the meanings of the words as they appear in the Veda. So the benefit of the mantra overall can be realized. So there was a little bit of comparison between Vyakarana and Nirukta. So Vyakarana was about determining the meaning of a word from the formation, how it appears, how the formation of the words appear in a shloka. Whereas Nirukta is determining the formation of the words from the meaning, from the intended meaning of how it's appearing in the shloka. So Vyakarana has got rules that help understand the exact meanings of words, depending on how they're appearing. Whereas Nirukta explains the meaning based on the context in which it was used in the Vedas. So it basically complements the Vyakarana. So going back to Yaska Maharishi, he also talked about how words are nitya or eternal. And he talked about this fourfold division of words, Vaikhari, Madhyama, Pashyanti, and Para. And he also talked about dividing words or padas into 4 groups. So namani, which are nominals, the verbs, akhyatani, prefixes, upasargaha, indeclinables, nipataha. So Yaska believes that the nouns are derived from verbs or the dhatus, because objects are named after a specific action that they perform. So that's the link between how the verbs and the name words. So then certain so I will probably will not go into so many details of verbs and the noun specifics, but so Yaska has given various lists of words. For example, upasargaha, he has given a list of very different upasargaha, many of which we are using even in the Sanskrit that we learn at quite a low level. Para, abhi, ati, su, nir. Then the last thing which I want to talk about is just going back to the Nirghantu. I had spoken about the 3 different sections, which, the 3 different sections, which is first, so here basically giving a bit more detail about that. The first section is the Naighantu Kanda, which is the list of synonyms. So here the list of words that appear are to do with physical objects such as the earth, water, clouds, day, night. Then the second section is the Naigama Kanda, which is the homonyms. And the last one is so here, the second section, there's quite a lot of words to do with human beings and anatomy, limbs, etc. And also qualities that are associated with human beings. So anger and wealth were the two examples. And the last kanda was the Daivata Kanda, which is a list of abstract qualities rather than specific objects. And the 5 sections that appear in the Nighantu, the first 3 were, I believe, the Nighantu Kanda. The 4th one is Naigama Kanda, and the 5th one ends with Daivata Kanda. So this is just a brief about Nighantu. Thank you.
Very good, Mahoday. You have done a good job. Only certain corrections while saying Naighantuka Kanda, you have to say. Nighantu. Nighantu in Hindi also it is used, no? Nighantu. So Naighantuka. Naighantuka comes from Nighantu.
Okay.
Then next Mahodaya, Naresh Mahodaya, would you like to talk?
Namaskaram. So I will be talking on Kalpa, and as we have already listened to other speakers, Kalpa is one of the important Vedangas. Kalpa becomes important. Why? Because Vedanga, as a mastery in the other 5 Vedangas, is aimed to perform the actions on ground in Kalpa successfully. And that is why Kalpa deals with the aspects inducing a person into Vedic action. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Kalpa focuses on the ritualistic events of life and has discussed about different stages of life. It has standardized procedures for Vedic rituals, especially for the life events like birth, wedding, and death in the family. In the context of Vedangas, Kalpa refers to the text that provides detailed instructions regarding the Vedic rituals and personal conduct. These are divided into 4 categories, broad categories. Sauratra Sutras, which is dealing with the public rituals. Graha Sutras, dealing with the domestic rituals. Sulba Sutras, construction of altars for Vedic sacrifices. And Dharma Sutras, which are Vama Sarama Dharmas, dealing with the ethical and legal aspects. In a way, Kalpa is like a manual, if I may compare for ease of understanding, which give details of how a ritual should be done. What are the functions of brahmacharis, grasthastra, sannyasis? What rituals involve which mantra, devata, material, etc.? How many priests should perform a given ritual? What vessel of what shape, size, etc. is to be used? There have been a number of sages who have compiled these, and the primary ones are Apastamba, Bodhayana, and Vekhansa. In each of the Vedari sessions, there are 2 kinds of kalpas, sutras. First, the Suratra, named after Shruti, which means Veda Sutra, and the Griha Sutra. These outline the 40 rituals, Garbhadana, Umasavana, Simanta, etc. And these rituals are to be performed from the time of formation of the embryo in the womb to the time of cremation of the body. They also outline the 8 Atma Gunas, the virtues that a person should have, like compassion, tolerance, cleanliness, etc., etc. Among the 2 sutras, Saratra Sutra describes the major sacrifices, while the Griha Sutra describes the domestic rites. When we do the Nama, Vandanam to elders, we state what sutra we follow. Apasthama Mamba or Badhyamana, etc. Which of these rishis? You may correct my pronunciation later.
Apastamba.
Okay, Apastamba or Bodhayana. Yeah. These refer to the Sauratra Sutras. In the ancient times, the Sauratra karmas were given greater importance than Griha karmas. In addition, there are two other texts, like I mentioned, Sulba Sutras and Dharma Sutras, which deal with the construction of altars for Vedic sacrifice and the ethical and legal issues respectively. Now, each of the four Vedas have associated sutras, and a summary of these is Rig Veda has Asvalayana Sutrani, Sankhayana Sutrani, Samveda has Jaminia Sutrani and Dvadya Sutrani, Atharvaveda has Vetansha Shrot Sutrani and Koshika Graha Sutrani, and Yajurveda is further split into two parts, Krishna Yajurveda, which has 5 of these, I'll not name them, and Shukal Yajurveda, which has Katyan Sutra. Among the 4 Vedas, the Kalpa Sutras of Atharva Veda, which itself is very less in practice, are not readily available now. Kalpa Sutras and rituals. Now, this is the primary part of my presentation. Kalpa Sutras are related to the Karma Kanda, or the ritual part of the Veda, and that is why it is the application of all the other Vedangas in a way, because we are doing it ourselves. In contrast to the Upanishads, which are Jnana Kanda, or the knowledge part of the Vedas. These sutras, which are more focused, clear, short and practical aspects of ceremonies, trace their roots to the Brahmana texts of the Vedas. So in a way, it is linking back to what ma'am you explained, that yeah, these are the ones which make you understand, Vedangas make them understand Vedas better in all aspects. And Kalpasutra's need for study. Why did we need to study Kalpasutra? It emerged to serve the needs of the priests as they have officiated over the ceremonies such as wedding, baby naming, rites of passage, so that the rituals were standardized, performed efficiently, and appeared consistent across different ceremonies. These also help the participants and individuals integrate within the custom and cultural practices of our Sanatani culture. From the moment, as I said earlier, one is conceived in the mother's womb to the hour of one's death and beyond. Now, Kalpasutra and Yagna, which is the practical aspect on ground. The word Yagna is used to indicate any work involving rituals done in front of sacred fire, often with chanting of mantras. Yajnas have been a Vedic tradition described in a layer of Vedic literature called Brahmanas, as well as the Yajurveda. There are 7 well-known Yajnas in present times. These are Agnistama, Apurayama, Atratra, Chaturmasya, Narudha, Pasubandha, Sautramani, and Vajapaya. Philosophy of Yagna. Yagna intends to offer due respect to the divine values, unifying the pure and selfless energies for the protection of nation. It has larger meaning, religion and humanity. That means for a higher purpose it is done, which is achieved by sacrificing our possessions for divine purposes. That is for the larger good of the people and all the species of the universe. What is the significance, if I may narrate? The celestial beings are sustained by the sacrificial offerings during yajnas. Food sustains life, and the rains are the cause of food. This is explained through the symbolic representation of the Vedas in scriptures as a tree, which is upside down, with roots high above and branches extending down to the earth. This very well explains the significance of yajnas. The yajnas can be classified into 3 broad groups: the 7 prakyajnas, the 7 hari yajnas, and 7 somyaga. There's an interesting part of yoga, yajnas mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I read across. Gita has recommended 5 yajnas for human beings. These are dravya, donation of wealth; tapa, that is penance, we all understand; yoga, swadhyaya, that is self-learning; and jnana, acquisition of knowledge. In the context of the actions by human beings in the course of life, by all of us, in fact, a man does many actions wittingly or unwittingly, right or wrong, including causing harm to others. Now, to atone such actions, Gita lays down 5 yajnas, which are propitiatory rites or yajnas, you may call, have been prescribed by many sastras, including Gita. These are Devi Yajna, Pitra Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, Manushya Yajna, and Rishi or Brahma Yajna. There's an important aspect in Yajna, which we all know, which is the significance of fire and the Yajna Vedis. The Kalpa lays down the rules and rituals. In the process of establishing the sacrificial fire, rules of kindling the fire, and duties of Yajmana after the fire is established. And lastly, about Vedis. Vedi means an altar. Yajna Yuddhas are various implements which ma'am taught us used in the sacrifices. Kalpas also lay down the specification of Vedis made of sacrificial fires, including its shape, size, height, and so on, as per the type of rite to be performed. Kalpa Sutra goes into further details down to the type and size and shape of bricks to be used while making the unit for Vedi. I'm not going to those details, but I'll certainly say what are some examples of Yajna Sutrams. One is, pardon my wrong pronunciation, Asharalaya Nagrama Sutram, which includes rituals of marriage and related activities. Vodhya Nadarama Sutram, like the body gets cleaned with water, the buddhi gets cleaned with jnana. One becomes pure by speaking truth always, leading to purity of the mind, we all know, but we have to put in practice. So a person, as laid down, should learn, I believe, 48 years or 12 years for each Veda, at least, as were taught to us by you. One should aim to learn the Vedas or other subjects with total dedication, as there is no guarantee of the life. Till the hair is black, one should learn, which is not applicable to me. This sutram also includes the cleaning agents available in nature, which were probably relevant in those ancient times when they were laid out, and rightly so. And the last one is Apastama Sutram. Ashumatashi Prayagha Kundalista. Okay, Kundalishti, sorry, Kundalishti. Now, this is, as you taught, persons desirous of long life. This yajna is performed. It is called Kundalishti because the person doing this yajna has to wear a special type of earring made of gold at the time of ceremony as a token of having performed the Ishti. Now, another thing that was taught was two yanas, Uttarayana and Dakshinayana. Uttanayana is the auspicious period during which some yajnas are to be performed. These are Griha Sutram. And lastly, what are the yajna yuddhas? I think I mentioned. These are the instruments and implements used in Vedic sacrifices. These are also spelled out in the Kalpa. And a few examples, 2, 3 I've noted down. Agnihotra, which is used for putting the milk in the fire. Metallic thali for the food to be served the poor persons. And aranis are the 2 pieces of wood used to produce fire by attrition. In conclusion, ma'am, I'll like to bring out 2 important aspects of Kalpa, which are related to actually very advanced scientific studies that we do now, and Britishers are snatched from us anyway. One of the ancient Vedanga, by highlighting that the chain of 4 quadrants, I noted it down from somewhere, you may correct me, ma'am, or the 12 signs of zodiacs represent the Shrautra Sutras in Kalpa Shastra. Some early Shrautra Sutras were composed by sages like Bodhyana and Vidula Sutras. From there, the first derivative, the Sulba Sutra, were initiated to deal with the mathematical methodology to construct the altar geometries. Because altars are very finely designed for geometry depending on the ritual to be done, for the Vedic rituals to be performed. So it is evident now that the Sanskrit word Sulba, which means chord, C-H-O-R-D, and these texts are indeed rules of the chord, as we read in geometry, or the arch, or the funicular line of the bow, jaya, or dhanua. The various meters of the chords, hard points, or marmas was the beginning of the system of the knowledge in the world, called Jaya Matra, which later has got distorted, and we call it geometry, an important part of the mathematics today. It is here the first vocabulary of the built environment of Vastu Sthapya Shastra, the Rig Veda, reference 7th Mandala, awaits its first genesis. So the whole discussion that I've done takes us back to the very ancient age, the age of Bhargavi Samahita, which was second part of the Atharva Veda. With that, I finished my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Only thing you need to pronounce learn to pronounce Sanskritam properly. That's all.
Yeah, I'm
My
doing
only
a
request
basic
is
course.
that.
No, I'm doing a basic course, so I've
No, it's
started that.
okay. It's okay. You learn slowly. I have no objection, but pronounce properly.
Sure.
That's all. Huh?
Thank you.
Astu
Thank you.
Nalini Mahoday.
Namaskar to all. I'll begin with the a shloka that Sudaresh sir began with. Chanda pado tu vedasya hasto kalpotha pathyate jyotishyamayanam chakshur niruktam shotram uchyate. Now, the first four that we have, the first four parts of the Vedangas that we have looked at, that is Shiksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, and Niruktam, they all deal with language. Shiksha, for example, deals with phonetics, Vyakarana with grammar, Chandas with prosody, where there's a fair amount of maths involved, and Niruktam is the etymology or the formation of words. Now, Kalpa and Jyotisha deal with Yajna. What kind of Yajna needs to be done for what kind of material gain? Okay, so you have a different, different kinds of Atiratra and Agni, different kinds of yajnas that were, prescribed for different kinds of gains. Then you have the Dharma Sutras, which talk about the yajnas and performance, Ashvalayana Dharma Sutras and Apastamba Sutras. Okay, these are the ones that also talk about yajnas and performances. Then, of course, you find that Jyotish Shastra is actually used for fixing the auspicious time for Vedic yajnas. Now, Lagadacharya, the sage, gave us the text for an overview and the development of astrology and astronomy. It was called Vedanga Jyotisha. It's a treatise. Okay, you have a whole lot of maths involved in it. Okay, and astrological concepts. What we do when we go to an astrologer is actually look for Phalita Jyotisham. Okay, that is what to do in which situation. If I'm, suffering loss in business, what do I do? What kind of puja if I do, I'll get okay, and things like that. Then, of course, you find that the Vedic people knew a lot about these astral sciences. They knew about when the new moon would come, full moon would come, at what angle the sun would shine, when you have the what kind of calendar you have according to the Sauramana, what kind of calendar you have according to the Chandramana, and so on. And then, of course, these were, and all the 6, seasons or Ritu, because these were required for determining specific yajna times. You can't do the yajnas whenever you want to. Okay, now the Vedanga Jyotisha had these two branches, Archa Jyotisha and Yajushya Jyotisha. Now, Artha Jyotisha is, attributed to Rishi Swayambhu and Bhrigu. There are 162 verses, and it deals with astronomy and astrology. They talk about the days of the week, and they talk about the Tithi, Nakshatra, and Yoga. Okay, and then, of course, one of the most important contribution of Vedanga Jyotisha as a treatise is its development of a calendar system based on the movements of the sun and moon. Okay, Jyotish Shastra is utilized for Dik, Desh, Kal, and Nirnaya, that is, how to determine Dik, which is direction, okay, Desh, which is location, Kal, which is time, okay. So timekeeping was one of the primary objectives of the Vedanga Jyotisha. Okay, so you have the Panchanga, for example, whenever it is Chandramana Yugadi, in a lot of homes, the Panchanga is read out, and all members of the family, however small or big, whatever you know or don't know of this particular science, everybody gathers around to listen to the important dates and things like that. Get to know the days of eclipse, when you have a solar eclipse, when is it total, when is it partial, lunar eclipse, you have Ekadashi timings. Then you have time of sunrise of each of, you can see the kind of precision that these sages had reached to the last, second they were able to tell. And this they sat and wrote so many years ago. Okay, it's the formulae for all of this. So time is something that is of utmost importance for performing yajnas. Okay, and of course, what happened was that you had a kind of analytical time tracking framework, which worked in tandem with astronomical observation. So if there was a slight correction to be made, the Ganaka can make predictions, and the Nakshatra Darsha would kind of confirm the degree of accuracy, or if there were slight corrections to be made, things like that. Now, what is really Vedanga Jyotisham? You have several aspects of Kala. Then you have the summer and winter solstices telling you when, okay. Then increase and decrease in day and night. Ma'am talked about the daylight saving hours that people abroad do. They just, recalibrate the timing according to that. Then we have the 6 seasons. Then you have the table of parvas, you have yogas, you have the equinoxes, when equinoxes happen. Then you have the different, as I said, the Sauramana and Chandramana, what kind of calendar there is. Then, of course, the revolution of the sun and moon. And, of course, the time of sun and moon's transit through a particular nakshatra. So then they also tell you about the Adhika Mas, because the lunar calendar has just 360 days, and we have the Gregorian calendar looks at 365. So once in 2-3 years, you have that extra that has to be made up, which is called the Purushottam Mas or the Adhik Mas, and it's supposed to be very auspicious to carry out spiritual practices and things like that. Okay, now we go on to Siddhantas, which is an established theory. Okay, and what happens in these Siddhantas is there is a detailed explanation. Now, you have the Ashtadasha Pravartakaha. Okay, you have these sages. Okay, then Surya, you have Paitamaha, you have Vyasa, Vasishta, Atri, Parashara, Kashyapa, Narada, Gargya, Marichi, Manu, Angirasa, Lomasha, Paulisha, Chavana, Yavana, Bhrigu, and Shaunaka Rishi. These are the 18 rishis. Now, then, of course, we have the nakshatra and the zodiac system. Okay, the nakshatra system was already, we all know that there are 27 nakshatras, and you have the zodiac like the Mesha, Vrishabha, and all that. Again, there's a fair amount of maths that goes in. Each constellation has 4 padas. So, for example, in Mesha, Rashi, you have Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika. How is the calculation done? 4 padas of Ashwini. Each constellation anyway has 4, isn't it? 4 padas. So all 4 of Ashwini, all 4 of Bharani, and 1 of Kritika, it makes it 9. So 9 padas will become 1 Rashi, which is Mesha, and so on. So when you go on to the next one, when you go on to Vrishabha, Kritika, we had taken only 1 out of 4. So for Vrishabha, you take the remaining 3 padas of Kritika, add 4 padas of Rohini, and put 2 padas of Ardra, and you again get 9 padas. That goes on to make the Vrishabha Rashi. Okay, so like that, and of course, according to what it looks like. For example, the Vrishabha looks like a bull, the mean looks like a fish, and so on. So here, of course, you find that computations for precise values, that is the length of the solar year, motion of grahas, solar and lunar eclipses, all that is kind of you can easily, is worked out like this. Okay, now there were 18 Siddhantas in all, but during Varaha Mihira sage's time there were only 5, which he consolidated and established, okay, and called it Pancha Siddhantika. This is a text by Varaha Mihira Rishi. Then you have another way of classification of Jyotisha, that is the Siddhanta Skanda, Muhurta Skanda, and the Jataka Skanda. So Siddhanta Skanda is, the Aryabhatta way of this thing. Then, of course, Muhurta Martanda and Muhurta Mani is the Muhurta Skanda. Then you have the Jataka Skanda is the Brihat Jataka Skanda, again developed by Varaha Mihira. Okay. Then the Jyotisha as a Shastra again has 6 branches. You have Jataka, you have Gola, you have Nimitta, you have Prashna, you have Muhurta, and you have Ganita. Ganita, of course, is main because it is what decides the perfection of Jyotisha. Jyotisha is today a very hotly contested topic. A lot of people saying, oh, it's only a, pseudoscience, there's no this thing to it and so on. But you must have proper knowledge, and your ability to interpret should be very good. So it is something that is very highly developed, in fact, not something that you can just take lightly. Okay. So here, the one who knows Jyotish well will know yajnas well as well. Okay. And therefore he can conduct, for social welfare, he can conduct yajnas also. Then, of course, there was a very nice saying, like, just like peacocks have a beautiful shikha and serpents have a mani. Okay. So also you have Vedanga, which has Jyotisham standing on top. Okay. So that was this thing. And also, of course, you find that how does one track the lunar passage in the sky? You do it through the nakshatras. Okay. So here, and of course, there are adhipatis for each of the rashis. For example, the Meen Rashi, and then you have Mesha Rashi, for example. We begin with Mesha. You have the Adhipati is Kuja, for Makara it's Shani, and so on. You have Brihaspati, you have Shukra, you have like that. Then, of course, you find that how you have 12 Rashis, and the Rashi Chakra is 360 degrees, as we all know. 360 divided by 12, you get 30. So you have 30 degrees for each part. And of course, you can see again the number of maths, the amount of maths that is used. Okay. Then, of course, you have something called the Navamsha chart, which is used to help a person in their lives. Okay. Then, of course, you find that so you have, of course, night and day, and how hora comes out of ahoratra. Okay. You take out the and you take out the tra, and then you have the hora. Okay. This is what is really finally what we are leading towards is really moksha. That is the primary, or should be rather the primary this thing of intention of all human beings. Okay. And how do we get to that? Okay. How to overcome obstacles? You have the Hora Shastra that is that allows us. And of course, nowadays you have Dhanam and Tirtha Yatra and all that, okay, advised, so that you keep on giving up things when you don't get too attached to a place or your material possessions and so on. Okay. So here, and then of course you find that we also had one part of the what ma'am taught us about how a lot of these things, for example, Chandas and Pingala Sutra, you can actually look at the binary number system and Pascal's triangle and zero and permutation and combination. For example, you have so many chandases these days, like I mean, as you keep learning more and more shlokas from various this thing, you will find that Anushtubh is a very, very common one, for example, but you don't have too much in Shikharini, or so you have a lot of that. Then Panini's Ashtadhyayi, you can see formal mathematics systems. And then, of course, it is also used for potential application in present-day computer programming languages. Okay. Then Shulva Sutrani, you have Pythagoras' theorem. And then Jyotisham, you have trigonometry and calculus and so on. So here, there were several texts that Varahamihira Rishi is credited with writing. Okay. And ma'am mentioned about the region of Saurashtra. Years ago, in the year 2000, she was in Gujarat, and it had a terrible earthquake. And this was actually a prediction that Varahamihira had actually, by his calculations and his understanding of things, had actually predicted that there would be an earthquake, and following which the region of Saurashtra would become more fertile and green, and it would have more rainfall after that. And that is really come true. So you can see the strength of Varahamihira's predictions and so on. So then, of course, he's written a lot of he has Pancha Siddhantika, then he has Brihad Jataka, the Brihad Vivaha Patala, Brihad Yatra Yoga, Patala, and so on. Then there's something on Brihad Samhita, is again on general astrology. All these are authored by sage Varahamihira. So you can see how what kind of a immense contribution he has made to this field. Then, of course, Aryabhatta, the author, is again of several treatises on maths and astronomy, some of which are lost. Aryabhatiyam is, of course, on the mathematical part, has arithmetic algebra and spherical and plane trigonometry. It has 108 verses and 13 introductory verses. So you have a Gitika Pada, which has 13 verses, Ganita Pada 33, Kalakriya Pada, which has 25 verses, and Gola Pada, which has 50 verses. Again, he's talking about the, huge spans of time. In the Gitika Pada, for example, he's talking about huge expanses of time like Manvantara and Mahayuga. What is a Mahayuga? How do you measure a, Manvantara and so on? And of course, there are one or two like him, but I think for the purposes of Jyotisham, I think all the rest have to do with mathematics as being a very important field of knowledge for Jyotisha. So I kind of will stop with Aryabhatta's contribution. But primarily it is Varahamihira who's made a tremendous contribution to our understanding of time and astrology and astronomy. Okay, Dhanyavada. Thank you.
Excellent. So all of you have worked very well. I'm so happy. Next week, actually, Vyakaranam is remaining. Rama Bhagini said she would cover it, but today, as it is late and she is yet to complete her preparation, we will have it next class or maybe after that. Next week, I wanted to start Upangas, Nyaya Sutras. If she wants to do this, let us see how it comes. Astu, I think we will wind up. If you would like to talk more about your topics, you can do so. And 1st November, there won't be any class. That week, I'm not free. Actually, my mother-in-law